Hello world and welcome to this edition of Tech on Fire with Blaze. I'm Blaze Stewart, architect at Winelect, and today we're going to be talking about my experience with a $30 smartphone. Hi guys, today I'm going to take a break from the Azure content that I usually do and talk about something that I did on myself, a social experiment. So basically what I did is I went and got a $30 smartphone and I daily drove that $30 smartphone for 30 days. And this is my reaction to that. And for whatever reason, my phone I've been using for the last 3 years wouldn't work with the customers. So I needed a phone. So I went on Amazon, bought the cheapest phone I could find, had it primed to me that day, and I got the phone and I set it all up and it worked fine. So the phone I ended up getting is this little LG Journey LTE on track phone. So it's now it's probably false to say that this is truly a $30 phone. It cost me $30 to buy this phone. The phone specs are pretty minimal. It's a quad core processor at 1.4 gigahertz. It's got 2 gigs of RAM. This model has 32 gigs of storage on it. It's about a 5.5 inch display. It's got decent build quality. It's a plastic build with I've kind of got a bezel on the screen so you can kind of see that it's got a pretty wide bezel. It's the cameras are. It's got a forward-facing camera with no forward flash, but it does have a rear flash on it, and a back face, a rear camera. That does okay. It's running Android 10 and came with Android 9 from the factory. So that's kind of what about the phone. But let's go talk about what I liked about this phone and what I didn't like about it. So let's talk about what I liked about this phone first, and then I'll talk about what I didn't like about it. Now, the first thing I liked about it is the price. Now for $30, sometimes you're kind of like, I'm not sure I'm going to get anything good at that price. But I have to say, with this phone, it's a dang good bargain. For $30, this phone really does shine, and I was pleasantly surprised. Another thing that I thought was pleasantly surprising was Android 10. Now, this was something that I was not expecting. I was thinking a $30 smartphone, this is going to run some old version of Android, maybe Android 7 or 8, but it had Android 9 from the factory and it upgraded to Android 10 after I applied some updates to it. The third thing I liked about it was the call quality. I've used some junk in the past. I'm notorious for buying cheap phones, but overall, this cheap phone that I bought for $30 had high-end call quality that was on par with phones that cost 20 times the price of this phone. And the fourth thing I liked about this phone was, generally speaking, the overall experience of this phone. Now, it wasn't glamorous. I'm not going to lie. It was, there's certainly much better experiences you can get from other devices that cost more, but this one was far from terrible. It was a really decent experience for what you paid for. So those are the things I liked. Now, what I'm going to talk about, what I didn't like, is really not so much stuff that I hate about this phone. It's really nothing to hate about this phone, given that it's a $30 phone. This is just stuff that I more or less miss about my other phone that I use that's still 3 years old. So first and foremost was fast charging. Now, fast charging on this phone does not exist. This $30 phone does just has a micro USB port on it, and it takes about 2 to 3 hours to charge. Another thing was no 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. And I don't know if this is a problem with the phone or with my network, but I have a 5 gigahertz network, and it didn't even show up in the options on this phone. The third thing was the shake gestures. Now, one thing I like about my 3-year-old phone is the fact that I can turn the flashlight on just by shaking it, and the gestures that you can do with it to perform certain features. Now, and this phone, you have to unlock the screen, swipe down, hit an icon, the flashlight comes on, then I have to do the exact same thing to turn it off. Another thing was the performance. It's good enough to deliver a decent experience, but the performance was, and some apps that require a lot more CPU just do not even run on this. So my daughter loaded up an app that does face distortions and all that, and it barely even ran on the phone. It would load and it might do about 1 frame per second, while on another phone it's just seamless, full 30 frames per second or better. Camera on this phone is it's not terrible. It's just lacking. It just feels slow, and the picture quality is it's okay. It's not great, but If you're used to having a phone that's got a decent camera on it, then going back to this would definitely be a showstopper. And lastly is night mode. Night mode is, that ability to pick up your phone and flip it over and not be blinded by the glare from the screen when you just want to see what time it is. And this phone didn't have it. To check the time, you got to flip it over, press the button, and have the full bright screen come on in the middle of the night and blind you. So how does this compare to phones that I've owned over the years and the modern flagship? So this is the $30 phone I bought right here, the LG Journey. And these are the three phones that I've owned since I started using Android back in 2012. And this is a modern smartphone. So my first Android phone was a Nexus 4. I had an iPhone 3GS before that. And this particular Nexus 4 has very similar specs to what is an entry-level phone now. This was a flagship, and it took it basically 7 years to become what is entry-level today. So I eventually got the Nexus 6, upgraded that a few years later, and I used this one for a couple of years, and it was basically an iterative upgrade of the Nexus 4 in every category. And my current phone that I'm using now is the Moto G6 Plus. Now, I got this one about 3 years ago. It was a modest upgrade on hardware compared to the Nexus 6. And of course, next to a modern flagship like the S21 Ultra, this one looks just like a toy, a piece of junk. Currently in the Android market, there's just a lot of options out there. You have entry level all the way up to these flagships, and there's a lot of stuff in between. So who's this phone for? The person that this phone is really aimed at is folks that don't want anything fancy. They just want a basic phone with a basic plan. I was able to use the Facebook app, the Twitter app, the LinkedIn app just fine. It does a decent browsing experience. The Maps app works great. There's nothing about those apps that is going to underperform on this device. Another thing that you might want to use this for is a cheap media player. And the reason I say that is because this could be like an iPod if you were looking for something like that. There's nothing that says you have to connect this thing to a cell network. You can use it on Wi-Fi. So you could use it to watch movies, take pictures, listen to MP3s, that kind of thing. Another thing that you could use this phone is as a burner phone in a pinch. So that's basically what I used it for, was just something that I was going to get, use it for a while, and get rid of. And who's this phone not for? It's not for folks that need performance. If you're looking for a cheap performance, this phone is not that. Another thing that this phone is not for, another group would be folks who do media. Folks that do media would be folks like photographers or videographers, real estate agents that are taking pictures of homes, folks that need a good camera or video camera that they want to put in their pocket and take with them. This is not for them. And it's not for someone that does dev work. For someone like me, that I'm going to be writing apps for a phone, I might use this phone to test my apps on, but if I'm going to be writing apps for a device, I'm probably going to get something that's going to have a little bit better experience, just so that I'm not beating my head against the wall, assuming that it doesn't work because my code is crummy. It's probably it doesn't work because I'm using a modest device for you. Now, how's this going to inform my next phone purchase? Truthfully, I'm kind of in the middle between high end and low end. I do like media. I do like to take photography, so I want a decent camera. So that's kind of a showstopper for me from using this phone or keeping this phone as my daily driver. But I don't do a lot of games or things that require a lot of performance. So it's kind of hard to find a phone that has the more entry level hardware but has a good camera. And so you kind of have to kind of shoot for the middle and get something with more moderate hardware, and might have a better camera than an entry level phone, but not pay through the nose just because you want a good camera, but have a bunch of excess hardware that you will never take advantage of. So in the course of recording this particular video, my phone that I've been using for the last 3 years got baptized in chocolate milk, and it takes a long time to charge now, and it seems to have shorted out the battery. So this put me in the market for a new phone, and I settled on the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro. Now what this phone does is marries a more high-end camera with more moderate CPU, RAM, and storage. This particular phone has a 108 megapixel main camera with an array of other types of cameras, and it also has a decent selfie cam, which I don't really care that much about, but this will allow me to take better photos and take better video with this particular camera. Now, I do have some reservations about this phone. It is an Android phone running MIUI. Some people consider that to be a fork of Android and not truly an Android ROM, but You can get a third-party ROM for this. I'm just not ready for it yet. As of right now, I'm probably just going to stick with the stock ROM, but actually do some Android hacking on it, if you will. What you can do with Android is you can connect it through a USB cable, and through some of the developer tools is you can remove some of the packages that are installed on this phone. So that's my plan, but we'll see when I get the phone. I'll probably talk about how you can do that with phones in a future video. But for now, I'm just going to get the phone and use it more like it is, and then probably work with it to try to make it more of a custom experience that I want to use, rather than just taking the defaults and using the MUUI operating system that comes on the phone.
If you like this content, please consider visiting us online at www.wintellect.com, and there you can find about services that Wintellect offers, including training and consulting services. Also, please consider subscribing to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button and clicking the bell icon to get notifications when new content becomes available, and also comment down below. You can also follow me on Twitter at @TheOneMule, and also follow Wintellect on Twitter at WintellectNow or at Wintellect. We are constantly posting things about Azure-related technologies and things related to software development. You can also reach us by email at consulting@wintellect.com. Until next time, thank you.